Who is your coworker from hell? I had a 50-year-old colleague who would message women on sugar baby apps and rub one out over his trousers. Saw him blow his load in the open office. He sat next to me. Kept on happening. Reported it. He said he had a genital rash, but admitted to messaging people on social media. I got in trouble for my accusations. Fast forward 8 months, Hess sitting opposite me now. He starts rubbing one out in the open office again. I recorded him, showed my manager, and he was finally fired. He was a cunt too. Had an assistant who plotted to get me fired and take my job. Some of my workers let me know because he tried to get them on board with him. Eventually, due to politics, I was demoted but asked to be put on the shift relieving him. We would work 12-hour shifts on weekends. After being relieved by phone a couple of times, against the rules, I intentionally came in 4 hours early and he was nowhere on site. I still got a call from him when he should have relieved me like he was still on site. I let the guards know and they videotaped him and I got him fired. This woman who was one of those people who always had to one-up you. Like if you cut your thumb off, she was just recently sawed in half. She was constantly complaining and miserable and it was so draining. I worked shifts. Can't go home unless I passes my reports to the next person. One particular bitch loves coming in late. Not 5 or 10 minutes late. I'm talking 25 to 30 minutes late. Best part, she loves bitching about how everyone is always on her ass for coming in late. She literally lives 5 minutes walk away from work, so no one knows why she's always late. She almost got me fired because she wanted to find the weakest looking guy to be her little errand boy. When I told her politely to go screw herself, she told HR that I had been taking work out of her queue in the system. It wasn't a very good lie though, because why would I want to do more work than I have to? I even said this to HR in the disciplinary meeting. I work with a woman who is threatened by other women, especially if they are younger and have more education than her. She consistently tries to discourage women from furthering their education, and constantly tries to get women she is threatened by fired. She is a goddamn nightmare. Had a coworker who always gossiped about others and would say horrible things about everyone in the office. It created a super toxic culture and caused many people to leave, not because they didn't like the work, they just hated the culture. The 50-something turd that was the owner's son, spoiled brat, reminded me constantly who he was if I stood up to him. Creepy as hell too, could never just tell any of the women they looked nice, actually told me one day that my legs looked nice. I was wearing a skirt. That was the last time I wore a skirt to work for a long time. I immediately started looking for a new job within a month. There were so many other things that occurred. I was turned off from working for a small family-owned business since. First day of work she lit her desk on fire. Second day of work she ate her lunch and broke out in hives. Third day of work she arrives at work and sat in her passenger seat until one of us went out to check on her. She claims she hurt her back trying to pick up her purse and had one of her coworkers drove her home would not let us use the same microwave as her as she claimed she was allergic to garlic. The list went on and on, until she was fired. Oh Mary, and I wonder where you are now as you were so entertaining. Not as bad as some, but I'll never forget the 22-ish-year-old girl who spent hours of one shift telling me, with no prompting at all, about how she used to be a raging heroin addict but she was over it now and had become extremely religious. She went into very explicit detail about her drug deals and the things she'd done to get drugs. My shy homeschooled ass was stunned. The very next day she got fired for stealing $20 from the cash register. In civil service, there was this one woman who 1. Actively hit other people. 2. Changed enter times on timesheets without the original party's consent. This is a huge no-no legally. 3. Sabotaged my work and other people's. No matter how many complaints we submitted, she was never fired. Rumor had it she was never fired because she had some serious dirt on the administration, the kind that shouldn't be leaked to the press. We had a middle-aged lady that smelled like tuna. I was a manager and had to send her home one particularly hot day. I also had to put her chair outside after she left as it still smelled. It was such a shame as she was a really nice lady. She just fucking stank. The guy who touched himself the entire time I was doing the onboard packet with him immediately comes to mind. I win this one. She made a pot of coffee for the staff but spiked it with meth. My manager a few jobs ago. It was a tech company. We were the marketing team, which really just meant digital marketing. She had a very loose grasp on how our various tech platforms worked, and one day said to me when discussing her exasperation at posting a YouTube video to our brand channel, "I don't really understand the internet." She was dead serious. It was 2014. She was ultimately fired. They acted like a friend in broad strokes, but over time the little things showed that it was all bullshit. The one incident that sticks out to me to this day is when I told her that my mom was hand-making my wife to best wedding dress. Most people respond with some variation of "oh that's so cute and it's a fun moment." This bitch, she said, "couldn't you afford a proper one?" Not such a fun moment. I was a coworker from hell. I was real strung out and high all of the time, and a bad influence on my other coworkers. Much regret. Back when I used to load trucks, we had a dude who lasted exactly two days on the job. His first day, he seemed normal enough. His second day, he came in drunk as FK, a real no-no when you are working around heavy equipment, and instead of getting down to business he just counted around doing a half-assed job, thereby making everyone else's job harder, and making crude sexual jokes about the other workers on the line. And when the line supervisor told him to knock it off and do his job, he told her to stop being a bitch. Thank FK the jackass did not come back because we all wanted to kick his ass after that day. My boss, he always talked about other employees behind their backs when they left the room. This woman who hated me and always had to be better than me. It was awful. First time I have ever cried at work. One day, I caught her in a bold-faced lie. I had taken a day off. She said when I returned that the boss had asked questions about where I had been on my day off. My boss knew exactly where I had been. I knew because I had told her, so I knew this was a lie and she was just being nosy. Called her out. She had no response but tears about how I was mean to her. It was very satisfying to see her caught in a lie by the boss after years of lying to and manipulating her co-workers. They told me bare minimum of any task the workstation required, poor communication, disinterested in literally everything, treated details as something obvious I should have somehow known, etc. etc. The most awkward workday ever. Me, searching desperately to make sure none of these stories sound like me. Restated, but better, desperately searching to make sure that I don't sound like any of these stories. It's a close tie. First was the store manager who was supposed to be training me to get my own store but somehow decided I was a threat and proceeded to try and screw me over and inactively put a hamper on my training. Second was a dude who actively sandbagged his sales numbers in all categories except for one, to the detriment of his commission checks, so he could get praise in the district. Worked with a guy that was a supervisor in another department. Dumb and an asshole. Bad combo. Would constantly insist that I do things that violated OSHA rules or were physically impossible. Wanted me to work on a 20-ton bridge crane while he was using it. Obviously I said no. Every time I would refuse one of these ridiculous demands he would send out an email with everyone CC'd, from the area manager, plant manager all the way down to my boss. Soon after I left for a better job, he was fired, and they closed his email account as he was writing a manifesto. I heard they hired armed security to keep a lookout for him for the next month. She told our boss that she wanted to break into my apartment and touch all of my stuff because I bet it's all really cool. This was right after I found out she'd moved into the apartment next door. She would send stuff to my apartment just so I would put it on her stoop and knock on her door. So this guy wasn't in my department nor in my command structure, but this guy was the CEO dad, brought in to help out. He did things like hold private meetings with his underlings, in which he poisoned employees against each other, to not working and taking long lunch breaks. At one time he turned his entire department against my manager, to department that wasn't connected in any way. His actions destroyed friendships, working relationships, trust, and absolutely destroyed the working environment as a whole. Fucking Sylvia, cunt, thought she was hot shit because she got paid more than the rest of us having come from Alaska. I was so glad when she quit. A coworker I still hate to this day. Back in 2012 I used to work in an insurance office. This chick was extremely rude to junior colleagues, made a fuss anytime things were not going her way and made sure my life was hell when handing over work tasks. Anytime you would try to confront her she would go and cry to our manager. Oh yeah, she also had a secret chat with some of the chosen colleagues where she would make fun of other people's looks and generally start office gossip. I'm extremely happy I quit and I hope I never see her again.